Genius for life. Coconut smoothies coming at you.
All right, welcome to 15 Minutes of Genius. I am Alex Baer, the CEO and founder of Genius Juice, and the host on the show. We are just feeling accomplished that we've made it to the next episode. One episode at a time. That's our goal here at 15 Minutes of Genius. Big plug to my guy, Mark Nicholas, Mark N at ManhattanBeachStudios.net. This beautiful studio, if you can guess that. Big backdrop. Mark made this by hand, wood plank by wood plank. This guy is a handyman, and he's a jack of all trades. So there you go. All right, so I'm going to roll right into our guest here. We are partners with them. They are our CFO services. They do so much more, and he'll get into that. We have Jeremy Triefenbach. To my credit, I have always pronounced his last name correctly. He is the managing partner and CFO.
Genius.
That's why I'm a genius. There's one thing I'm good at, it's pronouncing names, and that's about it. He's a managing partner and CFO of Stage 1 Financial. A little background on him. I'm going to let him talk about Stage 1, but just a background on him. He is a finance and accounting expert with over 16 years of experience in corporate consulting. That's more than some of the millennials that are out there. Some more years than most millennials have been alive. His primary objective is to focus on young, fast-growing companies, and more importantly, their owners. Like me, I'm an owner.
There you go.
Helping to make individuals successful in achieving their dreams is the founding principle of Stage 1. Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing great. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too, man. Good to see you too. You got the quarantine beard going on?
I know. Well, I started growing this out before, and just it's stuck. So I'm going with it.
And it's timely. We're getting into winter time. It gets colder. You got to keep your face warm. You know, all that good stuff. Maybe you can.
Yeah, but it's Southern California. We're so spoiled here. Come on.
Very
Come
true.
on. It's beautiful. It's beautiful here.
When it's below 60, we start complaining, right? Like I do.
Exactly.
Right on.
Sorry about that, Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's get into it. You know what? This, I think, is such a valuable episode because, like, we have had no one like you on this podcast, someone with CFO level experience, someone that helps investor-backed brands in their back office and positioning them for success. Why don't you tell us more about, just right out the gate, Stage 1, what do you do, what are your core competencies, and how can brands really benefit from working with you?
Yeah, I mean, Stage 1 came from an experience that I had, and it really was an experience that both me and my wife, Katie, just lived through. And we were in a really early stage startup. We came in right when some private equity money came in, and the brand was about $4 million in revenue. Classic case of very little infrastructure, amazing brand, huge opportunity, but it was a real challenge to kind of get up and get running as a small company while you're trying to build brand and build customers and all that. And so the company was Dry Bar. They had a large chain of beauty services. They pretty much created the blowout industry. And then we also launched a product business into Sephora, and eventually it's expanded to a lot of retail throughout the U.S. But it was a very challenging experience in that I had to recreate everything, and I was using a consultant here and a bookkeeper there, and there was just lack of integration and organization. So I had to just build it all myself from scratch, and I constantly was just talking to Katie like there's got to be something easier, something out of the box that can get a brand going and really help them scale and allow for a situation where the brand is not getting stalled out because of the lack of process or infrastructure or whatever. So after a couple of years of working with the brand and taking it from 4 million to 40 million in revenue, I said, look, let's try this out. And Katie's like, well, that ain't going to work unless you're with me. We do it together. And she's absolutely spot on. this group would never be where it is without my beautiful wife and my partner. And over the past 7 years, we've been able to work with. I think I looked at it the other day. We've worked with over 400 brands over the past
Wow.
7 years,
Mm.
and we've seen successes from some companies going from 5 million to $100 million run rate. We've seen brands just really struggle at different points in time and then get out of that period and start scaling as well. So, we've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. And I would say the best part of this is that 7 years later, our focus as a organization has not changed. And that is as simple as we just really want to be a support mechanism and be part of the team to really help scale brands. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And one thing, I mean, what's great about this conversation is Genius Juice has been and still is with Stage One after almost 2 years. We joined you in, I think, December 2018. The biggest benefit that I've seen, I think it's just in general, founders, owners, CEOs, whatever you want to call them, usually they're all the same people, right? We need to really unlock and make time to do what we're best at. And what I'm best at and most CEOs are best at is talking, selling, going out and raising money and building the brand and really spearheading that vision and hitting the milestones we need to hit. And I think Stage One was able to set that up by really taking care of all the kind of minute work, all the things that I did not want to do and I wasn't really good at. And literally every day I'm talking with someone from Stage One, whether it's the books, whether it's invoicing, whether it's billing. So you guys are amazing at that. Tell us about some of the brands that you have worked with and you're still working with. I know we just had Vive on. They were the first guests on our show. We had Wyatt and JR, and obviously amazing story. They're one of those stories you were talking about where they were small when they started with you, and now they've just catapulted and are doing tens of millions in revenue. But tell us about your clients, and also, what do you look for in a client? I think that's a really good question. Like, because they have to be workable. There's someone you can work with, someone that you can enjoy working with. Tell us more about what you're looking for and what really makes a successful, client, client, I guess, finance partnership.
Yeah. No, we have been really lucky to work with some truly amazing brands. I mean, one of the first brands that we started working with that was private equity back. I mean, you start a company and you're trying to share a concept, but you only have like 3 people who are actually doing it, right? You're selling this big idea. Well, you end up getting like, a couple of small companies that really aren't truly private equity worthy at the time. But as we started growing over the first couple of years, we were very lucky to engage with a couple of very cool brands. One of them, which I think was one of the real kind of premier first brands we started working with, was Skinny Dipped Almonds. And we had a very, very good run of working with them for a number of years. I think it was 4 or 5 years. And it was such a great experience for us because we got a chance to see what a high growth company looks like. You can ask them. There were times where we were learning things, they were learning things, and so some of the early clients were really helpful to help us understand what it takes to support these companies as they're scaling. And I remember the first couple of years, we were like, God, it'd be amazing if we had a brand that was more than 10 million in revenue or 20 million in revenue. And now we're seeing those brands all the time. Either they're growing into it, like the Vives or the Koyas of the world, or we're getting new brands that are, 10 or 15 million in revenue, and they have hit the wall, or they're worried about hitting the wall because they're scaling really fast. And so, we've been really, really lucky to be able to work with some amazing brands. Vive's a great example. Wyatt and the team are just extremely dialed when it comes to operations and execution. And it really made us level up big time. Like there, in these relationships, things are tough. You're dealing with some of the most sensitive level of information. It's a lot of times the most stressful part of what an entrepreneur is dealing with. And so when working with Vive, they made sure that we were on our game at all times. And I think fortunately we were able to step up and really work with them for a number of years. And I hope to say that we were part of that success, at least a little part, but yeah, part of their success, and they're scaling great. I am very fortunate to be always connecting with Wyatt here and there. I went on when they launched their ecom and played with it a little bit the other day, and it's been a great experience working with them, with tons of different brands. And the other thing is we're very lucky also to work in a lot of different categories of consumer. Now we are very much consumer centric. That is all we do, but we play in a lot of different areas of consumer. And if you look at it, if it's like beauty, or if it's apparel, or we did a lot of retail going into COVID, and that experience from one category to another allowed us to give insights to groups like those in food and beverage that were introducing themselves to direct e-commerce or Amazon, where we're dealing with apparel brands that are digitally native brands. They've never been to wholesale. So we were able to help share some of these experiences across. Same with the retailers. Knowing the retailer's mind helps when you're trying to help prepare and get the brands and the entrepreneurs thinking about what's important to the retailer. So our ability to see across all elements of consumer, I think, makes us a better partner to every brand, regardless of what category they're in. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about, where are we strong? It's consumer, and it all plays together. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the adaptability, right? Where the consumer habits are constantly changing, right? And then you're plugged into that where, you know, 10 months ago in December or January of 2020, we were focusing more on early 2020, focusing more on retail. Suddenly COVID hits and we have to shift everything. And now we're focusing not more online, but definitely more resources online to get that buyer that's no longer going into the stores. So adaptability is key, and my experience with Stage One has been that you guys have adapted with us along the way to help us as we changed or improved our business model to really, at the end of the day, get to the consumer and sell more units and have additional revenue streams. You mentioned the word COVID. We're going to talk about the C word here. So you have been mentoring me for the last year, especially when COVID really started to climb and surge, and really the strategies behind brands that are in that in-between stage, right? Which is such a difficult stage where you're maybe above $1 million in revenue, you're starting to roll and get some traction and proof of concept, but not quite at the Series A level. And a lot of entrepreneurs try to rush into a Series A because it sounds sexy, right? I raised a Series A, So what is your advice for, especially during these times? You mentioned it to me. I want you to share with all of our viewers. How should a brand that's in that in-between stage of growth, how should they handle their capital? What should be their strategy on their capital raise? And how should they go about growing their brand in this stage in time?
Yeah. Speaking of COVID and then into capital, just as just a 2 seconds of background, since the very beginning of Stage One, we learned that the most important thing that we should be thinking about and talking about and supporting brands is thinking through capital. It's either the information flows that go in to support what you want to share with investors, or if it's positioning the brand in the right way so that you're putting yourselves up from a best perspective to raise from the right people at the right time. And and it came out of necessity. We started working with a lot of young early brands, and we got terrified that they would never pay us because they were running out of money all the time. So
Right.
we just like had to get good at it and say, okay, well, if we want to make sure we're going to get paid, let's raise $500,000 for this brand or something like that. So
Yeah, and you want them to stick around too, right? You want them
yeah,
to go to the exit, right? Not last for a year and then they're out
totally.
and they run out of money.
And
Yeah.
we've done a what I would say is just a really nice job of supporting brands and raising a lot of money. And we've never really kind of charged as a bank or anything. It's always been something that's been eccentric to who we are and what we're doing. And as COVID hit, and actually it was probably about 9 months leading up to COVID that we started seeing a major shift in the market, especially as it comes to food and beverage. And that shift was moving around. You saw some of the things happening with some of the digitally native brands where DTC economics were not making sense anymore. The
Hmm.
Casper example, the WeWorks, it was just starting to create a lot of anxiety and then a lot of nervousness within the investment community. That's okay. This kind of turn and burn for revenue is maybe not going to lead us to exiting these brands down the road. And so people started getting really thoughtful about, well, what do we need to do here? And it all went back to just really going back to business fundamentals, right? Build a company that can make money, right? Like simple. But as COVID hit, it accelerated what that trend was moving, but it just
Hmm.
moved it immediately to that point, right?
Yes.
And so when that happened, we saw it coming probably a few weeks before because we started seeing impacts of the retailers, right? And that's what I'm saying, that kind of synergistic opportunity where we're seeing something in one space, we can apply it to the rest of our client base. And as we started seeing softness in some of the retail data, we started getting really nervous, like COVID's going to be pretty bad. And when I
Hmm.
said pretty bad, like it was going to last like 2 or 3 weeks. That changed very
Could
quickly as we were
could be
going,
could
but
be 2 or 3 years.
yeah. And so we just really went into financial crisis mode. And what are those things financially to make sure that you maintain your brand, maintain your business, and get through certain periods of uncertainty. The first wave was massive uncertainty. These next levels of waves of what happens next, there's still uncertainty, but as we're moving, we're starting to understand a lot more, right? And a lot of our recommendation was pull money in as much as you can, tighten the belt as much as you can, and really just focus that business on only those things that matter, right? You don't have the luxury of trying this, or I'm going to do this program because I'm going to get some awareness. Like, go sell the product, right? That was some of the recommendations we had, but also, you know, be mindful of the market that you're in terms of fundraising, but don't stop fundraising. And so a lot of brands were able to do transactions during this really rough time. Some of them they had to take some decrease in valuation, but I think a lot of these brands that have gotten capital or who are maintaining, or even to the extent that are really accelerating, like Genius Juice during this time frame. A lot of these companies are going to be positioned to be the next crop of major acquisitions because they've had this chance to really redefine how they think about their brand from an economic position, make sure they're positioning themselves in a way that is accretive to an acquirer, and that have structured themselves for real benefit. So, and that's look, the conversations me and you have been having is about cost. It's about supply chain. It's about understanding the investment market. I mean, these are the things that are like real core fundamental conversations, and it's we're just super fortunate to have these conversations all day long with a lot of great brands.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the last 8 or 9 months, we've spoken at least, like, on a separate just phone call, at least once a month about going where the brand sells best, not trying to dabble in new opportunities when they may not pay off. And the big thing is margin, margin, margin. I was talking about this with Aditi Dash from Circle Up. She was on one of her earlier episodes. And brands now, to be attractive to an acquirer, to be attractive to an investor, especially a Series A, a very seasoned, sharp investor that's going to take a look at your P&L, your balance sheet, what are your margins on, on your different revenue streams online and also in retail. You got to have margin, and also you've always taught me, like, making room for the fact there's going to be trade spend. So your post-trade spend also has to be extremely strong. So I really credit, in our conversations, credit you and Stage One to really coaching Genius Juice to not only survive through these times, but pick the right opportunities and get the best return on our money and on our inventory. So we have about a minute left. Tell us one.
Well, I would say just one more thing on that, Alex. Is
Sure. Go ahead.
What I think we both learned, because I always learn from every brand. I think me and you, what we've learned recently is, like, there's some unique partnership opportunities out there, and just thinking, like, if you're facing a really tough challenge on margin, or I'll never forget, we had a call in the middle of April with another brand, with their manufacturer, and it was simply like, if we can't get 20% improvement on our cost, this business is gone. We can't raise money. We can't do anything. And you see the scale opportunity here. So either you're going to come and support us now, not in the future, but now, or we're all going to be in trouble. And that manufacturer stepped up. 3 months later, we closed the Series A, and this brand's on fire, right? Wow. So
amazing.
So these partnerships are critical in achieving that success, and that's what me and you've been talking a lot about, is some unique partnerships that we can see how we can continue to build onto the brand.
Yeah, there's so much strategy to build the right foundation, and I think you just got to be proactive and really work on all your relationships and partnerships. And what I learned most, to kind of put this conversation to bed, is, like, be proactive, start the conversations early before you're in any kind of trouble, margin-wise and sustainability-wise. So I think that's my biggest learning lesson, and now we're doing that.
And we also learned when going down the road of those partnerships, you have to really think about the holistic partnership, so that who you're talking to, they're going to get the best experience, and you're going to get the best experience, so that everybody wins. That's exactly how you got to start the conversation. And I think we learned some good lessons the past couple months.
Yeah, exactly. You got to put yourself in their shoes too, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
These are words of genius. This is probably like a snippet, I would say about 0.7% of what Stage One can offer just on this podcast right here. So
yeah, and I would say, like, exactly to that, I'm just a big talking bloated head over here. Like, the real people of Stage One are the grinders who are, cutting AP, who are running weekly cash flows for brands that are tight. It's the tax people who are making sure we're thoughtful on sales tax. It's everybody, right? That's the real team there.
Totally. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. All right. Well, Jeremy, if anyone wants to reach you or the team, and also big shout out and credit, you mentioned her earlier, Katie Triefenbach, your wife and partner. She is the CEO of Stage One. She couldn't join us today because you have 4 kids, and I can understand why. That's an okay excuse. 4 kids. I mean, it's passable excuse.
Something is probably on fire right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you better check on that.
And you hear about the Orange County fires? Probably my kids.
Yeah, that's where it started. So if anyone wants to reach you, what is your email and website? We'll post it on the LinkedIn, but just tell us right here in case anyone wants to get in touch.
Yeah, easiest way, email Katie. Katy at stage1financial.com. She's CEO, but she does every introduction call with anyone we ever talk to. Yep. She talks to everyone engaging with Stage One, because she wants to be very thoughtful about making sure that we engage in the best way possible. And she believes the CEO is the first stop to that. So
exactly, and it's really I had a really great impression when I first connected with Katie, and that having a great first impression really sets the tone for the partnership. So thank you again. Really appreciate having you on. I know we were originally going to have you drive in and be here, but with some last-minute complications, we couldn't make that happen. But thank you for joining us, and
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure I'll be talking to your team.
And thanks for the partnership. We love
Yeah.
working with you and look forward to continue to help build out the brand.
Absolutely. We're proud to be with you. Thank you. All right, so that
Thank
is this is this week's episode of 15 Minutes of Genius. I'm Alex Baer, CEO and founder. And one last thing, stay financially solvent and genius, my friends.
Genius for life. Coconut smoothies coming at you.